You know that feeling when you scroll through a sea of glossy monitor photos, see a huge curved screen that promises the ultimate workspace, and then you finally unbox it only to realize the colors look flat, the stand feels wobbly, or the extra ports you counted on are missing? I've been there more than once, and the last thing I want is to waste a big chunk of my budget on a display that sounds perfect on paper but turns out to be a daily annoyance. That's why I'm breaking down the Dell UltraSharp U4025QW the way I would if I were sitting at a desk trying to decide whether this 40-inch curve is worth the money. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about why a 40-inch curved monitor even exists in the first place. The idea is simple: give you a wider field of view without having to juggle multiple screens, and do it in a way that feels more natural for the eyes. Dell's UltraSharp line has a reputation for color accuracy and decent ergonomics, and the U4025QW adds a built-in Thunderbolt hub, which is a big selling point if you're running a MacBook or a Windows laptop with Thunderbolt 4. But the real question is whether the combination of size, curvature, and hub actually translates into smoother workflows for the people who need it. If you spend most of your day glued to spreadsheets, email, and a handful of web tabs, the extra horizontal real estate can be a game changer. I set up the monitor on a desk that's about 30 inches deep, placed the stand in the middle, and turned the curve just enough so the edges sit comfortably in my peripheral vision. When I open an Excel workbook with dozens of columns, I can see the whole sheet without constantly scrolling horizontally. It feels less like I'm fighting the screen and more like the screen is stretching to fit my workflow. That's a practical strength you don't get from a standard 27-inch flat panel. The curve actually reduces the need for eye movement and head turning, especially when you're comparing data side by side. The built-in Thunderbolt hub is another area where the U4025QW shines for people who want a clean desk. With a single cable, you get power delivery, video, and data to a laptop, and you still have two downstream USB-C ports plus a couple of USB-A connectors for peripherals like a mouse, external SSD, or a phone charger. I tested it with a Dell XPS laptop and a 65 watts power delivery. The laptop stayed fully charged while driving a 4K signal to the monitor without any flicker. That eliminates the spaghetti of cables that usually clutters a home office and means you can actually push a laptop into a docking position and walk away. Now, the strengths are clear, but there are hidden trade-offs that can trip up buyers who aren't paying close attention. The first is brightness. Dell rates the panel at around 300 nits, which is decent for indoor use, but if you have a bright window behind you, you'll notice some glare on the glossy coating. The screen coating is a standard anti-glare finish, not a matte one, so you'll still get reflections on the curve when sunlight hits it directly. In my own setup, I had to add a small desk lamp on the opposite side just to keep the screen's contrast looking sharp throughout the day. If you work in a bright office or near a large window, you might want to consider an external matte screen protector or a more heavily tinted panel. Another practical weakness is the stand's adjustability. The monitor tilts about 15 degrees forward and backward, and you can raise or lower it a few inches, but it doesn't offer swivel or height lock features. For a screen that wide, that limited range can be a problem if you're sharing the desk with a partner or if you want to angle the display for a more ergonomic posture. I found myself crouching a little to keep the center of the screen at eye level, which is fine for short sessions but can become uncomfortable over 8-hour days. If you need a fully adjustable arm or a VESA mount, you'll have to buy an aftermarket solution, adding to the overall cost. Speaking of cost, the U4025QW sits in the premium price bracket. That's justified if you actually leverage the Thunderbolt hub and the extra horizontal space. For a graphic designer who works with 4K video timelines, the ability to see a long timeline without splitting it across two monitors is a huge productivity boost. I tried it with Adobe Premiere, and the timeline stretched nicely across the full width, letting me cut and trim clips without constantly zooming in and out. The colors are accurate out of the box, which is typical for UltraSharp, so you don't need a hardware calibrator unless you demand the most precise color grading. On the flip side, if you're a casual user who just watches Netflix or browses the web, you'll likely be paying for features you'll never tap into. One more point that